In this video, we are going to look at AWS Glue, which is AWS's ETL service, extract, transform, and load. We are going to download Apple Computer's stock data, and we are going to do some transformations on that CSV file. So with that, let's get started with the demo. So before we take a look at a demo of AWS Glue, we need to create a IAM role. Why do we need an IAM role? We'll create a role so that AWS Glue service can access all the data sources that we will utilize. Like say, for instance, if we have some files in S3 bucket and we want AWS Glue to read those files, AWS Glue needs S3 access. So that's why we need to create an IAM role. So I'm going to look for IAM in the console and then click on roles. And here we'll create role, and the trusted entity type would be AWS service over here. So select that, and in the use case, search for Glue and then click next. And over here, search for Glue again in the policies. And over here, select AWS Glue service role as the policy. So we are going to use the AWS managed policy. And if you look at it, it has full access to Glue, access to S3, and then it has access to create buckets and also get object and put object. So we are going to select that. And also let's give it an S3 access, so S3 full access. So in case it wants to access our S3 buckets, it can do that. So I'm going to select that. So I'm just going to double check if I have the Glue selected. So I have the Glue service role selected. Now the next thing is to click on the next button at the bottom of the screen. So once I click next, I'm going to give it a name called AWS Glue service role. And it has the S3 full access and the service role, AWS Glue service role policy attached. Now we'll click on the create role button. I already have a service role, so it's giving me an error. So when you are creating it, it won't give you an error if you do not have that role. But let me just create a role with a different name. So I'm going to click that, write that, and click on create role. So now I have the AWS Glue service role and the new one that I created, the AWS Glue service role dash data engineer. The name really doesn't matter, so you can give any name you want. So now we have the AWS service role created for Glue. Now we will get started with the actual demos for AWS Glue. Now for the demo, we will need a data set, like basically some data to perform our demo. So go to kaggle.com/datasets. So for that, you'll have to create an account over here. And then in the datasets section over here, search for Apple stock price. So this has all the data about Apple stock price till December 2023. So we will analyze this data over here. So click on downloads. It will download a zip file. So extract it. So I'm going to click on download over here. I will open the file, or I will download the file. Now after that, I'm going to go to my console, AWS console, go to S3, and then create a bucket. So I already have created a bucket over here called AWS Certified Data Engineer and uploaded that CSV file over here. So we'll download the file from Kaggle and upload it over here. The bucket name doesn't matter. You can name whatever you want as long as you remember it. So basically you download the file and upload it in this S3 bucket or any S3 bucket you want. And then we'll go to the next step for the demos. So now that we have our IAM service role created, we have uploaded the S3, uploaded our data in an S3 bucket. Let's go to AWS Glue. So I'm going to look for AWS Glue over here. And then this will take us to the Glue homepage. Now on the left side, you will see this crawlers link. So click on that. So we're going to create a crawler that will crawl the data, analyze our CSV data, and generate the metadata from it, like what fields do we have and what data type we have. So I'm going to click on create crawler, and I'm going to name it Apple Stock Crawler. You can give it a description and tags, and then I'm going to click on next. And we have not mapped any glue tables, so we are going to click on add a data source. Now over here our data source would be S3, and we need to give the bucket name and the file path that we had just created. So I'm going to go to S3, I'm going to find that bucket, and then I'm going to select the file that we had uploaded, the apple underscore stock.csv, and click on choose. And then we can crawl all the subfolders, but that's okay. We don't have any subfolders, but we will leave it selected. And then we are going to click on add on S3 data source. Add an S3 data source. So once we do that, I'm going to select this, click next over here. So over here, it will ask to choose an IAM role. And then I'm going to select the service role that we had just created. This will give AWS Glue the permission to access our S3 bucket and the file over there. So then I'm going to click next, and then it asks us to choose a database. So imagine you have a SQL database, within that you have tables, but we have not created a database within Glue. So let's click on this button, add database. So it will take us over here. We will give it a unique name. The database name would be, let's say, apple underscore stock. Location and description is optional. So I'm going to click on create database. So it will create a database called apple underscore stock. Now, again, our database doesn't have any tables for now, but we are going to create a table. So this database can also be accessed directly from the left hand side. If you click on this databases link, it will take you to that database. But let's go back to our crawler tab. So over here now we have created the database. So I'm going to click this refresh button, select the Apple stock database, and that's all. And now how often do we want to run this crawler? So I'm just going to click on demand. You can also run it hourly, daily, weekly, and whatnot. So I'm going to click on next. Now let's click on create crawler button over here. So all the details are over here. We are going to create a crawler that will crawl our CSV file and populate it in apple underscore stock database. So I'm going to click on create crawler. So now it'll take you to this run page for the crawlers. Now I'm going to click on run crawler button over here. So this will actually run our apple stock crawler that we had just created. It might take a minute or so. So I'm going to pause the video and then we will come back in a minute or so. So after 54 seconds, the crawler completed its job. So you can also access the crawler from over here. I'm going to click refresh. So now we can see the crawler. It's stopping, but it has completed. So it has all the details over here. You can edit and delete and run the crawler again. Let's go to our databases. So we had created this database called apple underscore stock, and it created a table called apple underscore stock dot underscore CSV. It has the location over here from where it populated the data. It identified that it's a CSV file. And if you click on it, it will load the schema for the table. Like it has the date column, its data type and everything. So you have all the details over here. So it crawled and analyzed the data, and it analyzed the columns and its data type. So I've opened our apple underscore stock under CSV file. Now let's do some ETL on it. So I want to remove this adjacent close column. So I want to delete the whole column from my file as an example. So we have this date, the open price, the high price for that date, low, and the closing price. I want to remove this adjusted close price column from my CSV file as a practice for our ETL demo. So let's do that. So let's get back to the AWS console. So I'm back on my AWS console. In the AWS Glue section, we have all our database, the database from the previous demo. We have the crawler from the previous demo. Let's click on ETL jobs and then click on this button Visual ETL. So we are going to create an ETL job. Now let's select the source from where we are going to get our data from. So over here, I'm going to create our data catalog because we already have the data inside our ETL in our glue table. So I'm going to click on that. The other sources are S3 itself. You can directly read the data from S3. You have Kinesis, Kafka, other SQL databases, Snowflake, MongoDB, and whatnot. So these are some of the data sources available. You can also have a custom data source if as long as it supports a JDBC connection. So we have selected AWS Glue. So I'm going to click on that box. So over here we'll select our source database. So which we already know it's an Apple stock. And then we are going to select our table, which is Apple underscore stock underscore CSV. So we have selected that. Now we'll select our service role over here on the left. So I'm going to select the AWS Glue service role. So this will actually start analyzing the data itself or start previewing the data. So I'm going to click on save over here. So we have saved this step. And over here, let's give our job a name. So we are creating an ETL job. Let's give it a name. So I'm just going to name it as Apple Stock ETL. So this table reads our source data. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to add another node to it. And you have seen there are four types of node. There's a source, transform, targets, and then there's another popular tab. But on the transforms tab, we will select drop fields. So I'm going to click on that. So now you see it has added another box. So after AWS Glue data catalog, it will perform the drop field section. So over here, which field do we want to drop? We want to drop the ADJ close field. So it will preview the data over here and it shows that that field has been dropped. So I'm going to click on save again. So now once we have dropped the field, we are going to upload the data to a S3 bucket. So I'm going to add another node, but make sure before you add the node, you click on this box. Otherwise it will add a node not related to this. So I'm going to click on this box and then click on add node and then click on targets. So where do you want to upload that data to, the transformed data? And it has multiple destinations that you can choose from. So I'm going to just select Amazon S3. So over here I'm going to click on that, and then the format, we want it in CSV, the output format. I don't want it to be compressed. And then the target location. So I'm going to browse, and then I'm going to select the same bucket that has the source CSV file. You can select a different target bucket, doesn't matter. Wherever you want the transform file to be uploaded, just select that bucket. So I'm going to select my source bucket itself. And I should have just selected this and then click on choose. So after that, we just save this again on the top right. So after it's saved, we can run it from here. So let's just run our transformation. So it will perform all these steps where it will read the data, drop the field that we had selected, and upload the data through S3. So it has started the job successfully. So I'm going to go back to our ETL jobs, click refresh over here, and we can see there is a job created for it. So we are going to click on it and then click on the runs part. So here we can see it's running the job, and after a while it will finish the job. And once it's finished, we will review it. So now after 51 seconds, the job has succeeded. So now we can go to our S3 console and look at the output file and see if the column was dropped or not. So I'm inside my S3 section. I'm going to find that bucket. And you can see over here, a output job has been created, the output file. One mistake we made was the type is snappy. It should have been CSV. So let's go back and take a look. So I'm going to go over here, click on this, and we did not choose a compression type. The compression type should have been none. So I'm going to click on save and then click on run again. So now if I go back to the job details or the runs tab, you'll see it's running again. So now we'll wait for another 50 seconds or so to see the output. So now our latest job succeeded. So let's go back to our S3 and we can see over here we have another file. So I'm going to download the latest file and then take a look at the file. Now the output over here is not in CSV format, so I'm going to rename it to .csv file. And now I'm going to open the file and you can see that the column has been dropped from the output. So it has performed the ETL as expected.